everyone, welcome to today's video. Today I am reviewing the next major installment in the Rage universe, Rage 2. Developed by ID Software and Avalanche Studios, Rage 2 released on May 14th of 2019, marking this title just over a year old. So how is the game a year later in 2020, you ask? Well, let's dig into the insane world of Rage 2 and find out for ourselves. Rage 2 is a first-person shooter game and the sequel to the standalone title Rage, which was released originally in 2011. Now let's talk about the design. So personally, I feel the design of Rage 2 is structured pretty well, but I believe that it does have some flaws. When you take your first steps in the game and begin shooting your way out, there is an awkward transition that personally pulled me out of the experience before I even really began playing the game. I figured it was the bombardment of enemies that are thrown at you right out the gate, but no, that is not what it was. It was actually the controls that caused this disimmersion factor. The controls are kind of clunky, which I didn't expect from the developers of a most recent Doom reboot, but you know, I am playing the game on PS4, and honestly, it ultimately feels like it was ported poorly from the PC control scheme and patterns over to console. I'll give it credit though, because once you are past the introduction of the game, the balance of the controls seem to become easier to adjust to as I progress further in the game. Now let's talk about the combat. Now once the controls began to cooperate with me, I realized that the combat in Rage 2 is where the development was heavily focused during its production stages. As I became more and more adjusted to the awkward controls, I felt the game was starting to shine in its post-apocalyptic theme that it was going for. Considering the fact that there is only a handful of post-apocalyptic games out right now, I decided to let my frustration with the controls go, and at the very least just tried to enjoy the carnage that was presented to me so early on in the story. Once you progress further, you'll eventually unlock different abilities and weapon modifications that will ultimately highlight the combat in a much better light. I found myself actually wanting to expand my arsenal of abilities, and frequently caught myself exploring every nook and cranny of an area just so I could maximize another ability out. There is a major RPG element to this game, and I believe this is what will keep me engaged for many hours to come. It hasn't forced me to level up a certain ability that I never wanted to, and allowed me enough freedom to make my character feel like it was truly of my own creation and not some copy and pasted superhero. And I really enjoyed that feeling while playing the game. Now let's look at the graphics. If graphics are your go-to when purchasing the newest games, then Rage 2 will not disappoint you in that department. For being a game that takes place in a desert, I was surprised to see such detail and color within the game's world. From the rusty roofs of shanty shacks to the tinged hue of the hot desert sun, the graphics were not skimped at all during the development process. I remember a key moment when I was first playing the game. I was cruising along the road with the aging sunset off in the distance, headed on my way to the next ability unlock area, and I saw an enemy occupied gas station on the side of the road. I hopped out of my cruiser and sent a grenade over to the aged gas pumps. The explosions rang out, and I could hear the boom stretch for about a mile out from where we were. The explosion lit up my entire screen with such a distinctive color palette that for the first time I felt like my actions actually had a real effect within the game's world. If that doesn't explain how well the graphics have been incorporated within this game, I don't know what can. Now let's look at the story. Now the story is something that has irked me from the beginning. If you are wondering if you need to play the original Rage to enjoy the sequel, you'll be happy to know that you do not have to at all. There's enough backstory reference within the first hour to get the gist of what happened in the original game. The story irks me only because I found myself not really caring about the characters all that much. The characters seem rushed and so standard, as if the developers just needed to fill in to guide the story along to the end. If this was just an open world sandbox like Skyrim or Fallout for example, in terms of adaptability, I think it would have suited the design a lot better. It seems like the story of Rage 2 was pushed to the back of the pile for some reason. Maybe that's just me. Perhaps you'll play this game and you'll find the qualities of the story that I couldn't and enjoyed it to its full potential. So here's my final summary of Rage 2 in 2020. Now overall, I believe Rage 2 is a diamond in the rough for a game. Even with its flaws that I've covered so far, I still think it's a solid game and there's a lot fun to be had here. It's relatively cheap to come by as far as used copies, and I feel that you would really enjoy the game if you gave it a chance. But I'll leave that decision up to you. Let me know down in the comments if you are considering picking up Rage 2 at all. Also, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and liking this video. I'm kcchainz, and this has been my review of Rage 2. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Deuces.